Hi everyone, this is Lily Wask, and this is my presentation on French-influenced English. I'll start with phonology. The bulk of this presentation will be focusing on vowels and consonants, as most of the French vowels are very different than English vowels, and there's a few consonants that we have that they don't. So this slide is a vowel quadrilateral, and I circled in red the vowels that we use in English, and in yellow the vowels that French speakers are used to using, and in orange the vowels that are the same in both languages. As you can see, there's not a lot of overlap, especially in the mid-vowel section. There's a lot of mid-vowels that we have that French speakers don't know, and vice versa. So often French speakers will use the same vowel to replace several that we have. So like the I sound is really hard. A French speaker might use E for that. Also, we have A and A, and the French language uses a different A vowel, so that is usually substituted for both. And also, we have a bunch of diphthongs, and in the French language, they don't really use any. So there's, in accent addition with a French speaker, you'll be focusing on a lot of vowel modification. Additionally, in English, we don't nasalize any of our vowels, and in French, there are 4 different nasal vowels. Because I am not a French speaker, I had a friend of mine record a few samples of these vowels so you could hear what they sound like in words.
Centre, moins, tomber, un.
So in a session with a native French speaker, we may spend some time working on keeping the soft palate lifted through speech. There are some differences in consonants too. Most notably is the French R sound, which we don't have. It's a lowered soft palate sound. I'm not very good at it, but a French speaker will have to eliminate their French R and replace it with ours, which is quite different. In addition to the R sound, there are some other things that are different. For example, the TH voiced and unvoiced. Those don't exist in the French language, so those are often replaced with an S or a Z sound. The dark L sound, the retroflex L, doesn't exist in French. And even though they have the H sound and the J sound or je sound, they never start in the initial position in French, so that's something that you may need to help modify. And also, they have some words like their word for psychology, which also starts with a P and S. They would pronounce both of those letters, so that's something to be aware of. So for prosody, there are some things to note for stress and intonation. In general, French speakers tend to stress the last syllable of any long word, so there's a definite pattern there that we don't have in English. Additionally, in French, often if you want to emphasize a specific word in a sentence, you do that by changing the syntax. And in English, we can use word stress to emphasize that, so that might be something you have to get your French speaker accustomed to. Also in English, most questions we ask have ascending intonation. That's not always the case in French, so you may have to work on some prosody with asking questions and working on emphasizing specific words. So pragmatics is probably the thing you need to focus on the least with somebody with a French accent. One thing you might notice is that in conversational turn-taking or while listening to somebody, they'll verbalize their understanding with a or an ah, which isn't something that we do all the time as Americans. That's kind of a little thing, but if your client is really looking to have 100% American accent, that's something to keep an eye out for. I read a great research article on contexts for requesting with French speakers, kind of what kind of language to use when you're requesting something from a colleague versus a professor. And that might go more under the language learning aspect, but I think that would be helpful information for somebody looking to have a really standardized American accent. And a cultural difference that you might come across is our concept of politeness versus theirs. Um, Often the French have a reputation of being rude, which I think is a misunderstanding of culture, where for them small talk is discouraged. And at the same time, political opinions and conversation is really customary there, and people are okay to disagree with each other in a way that isn't as accepted in American culture. So, understanding how Americans talk about social issues and politics might be something to discuss with a French person who's having a hard time fitting in that way. So feel free to post any questions, and I will look forward to reading all of your handouts and watching your presentations. Thanks.